this is Nick Dawson from Talkhouse, and you're listening to the latest episode of Nobody's Ever Asked Me That. It's the spin-off series of the Talkhouse podcast, where I talk to filmmakers, musicians, comedians, and writers, and ask them questions they've never heard before in an interview, in an effort to discover a different side of them and understand them better. Today, my guest is Zia Anger, who, for my money, is one of the most gifted and adventurous emerging filmmakers working today. I first met Zia at a film festival back in 2015 and was struck by how confident and self-possessed she was, an artist who knew exactly who she was and what she wanted to do. I was also struck by how she folded her life into her work, such as in her first short, Thanks for Calling Baby, which features a phone call with one of her two dads, she also has two mums, where he shares an update on his HIV status. A year or so after, I remember us talking on the phone about the feature she wanted to make, which she was struggling to get off the ground, an autobiographical film addressing the failure of her unreleased debut movie. That project actually initially found form in 2018 as a hugely innovative live show, My First Film, which became something of a sensation. In it, Anger shared her laptop screen for a movie theater full of people, guiding them through the story of her troubled cinematic past with the help of emails, video files, notes app narration, and more. Post-pandemic, Anger finally got to make My First Film as a feature. Innately personal and formally adventurous, it breaks boundaries and bridges genres and achieves a moment of genuine transcendence that attempting to describe would only cheapen. The film's release in 2024 coincided with the arrival of Zia's baby with her longtime partner, fellow filmmaker Theo Anthony. Zia wrote a beautiful piece about filmmaking and motherhood for Talkhouse called The Process, which is one of my favorite personal essays from the past few years. Side note, Zia and Theo actually met at the same film festival where I first met her, and they clicked one fateful night doing karaoke in a dive bar. When I was thinking about who I wanted to talk to for this season, Zia was one of the first people who came to mind, just because she's so smart and unabashedly herself, and our conversations are always surprising and really interesting. As you'll hear, I was in the process of losing my voice when we spoke, but my croakiness did not prevent us from getting to a bunch of compelling topics, as Zia and I talked about the problems of being ahead of your time, how Justin Bieber's recent Coachella show followed in her footsteps, the remarkable series of Take It to the Limit parties she attended as a college student, the dream she had that Jung would have a field day with, what she would do during a nuclear holocaust, and much, much more. I started off our conversation by asking about a picture I could half see in the background. Who's that in the background, by the way?
It's Chantal Ackerman from, this is like my kid's nursery that she does not use. And there were all these filmmakers up on the wall from this scavenger hunt that I made a video for somebody. And they wanted me to paste all these filmmakers behind me, but Chantal was the only one that continued to stay up.
What does her work mean to you?
I mean, it's very hopeful in that it's so hard. Hard. For me, it's really hard. Watching her work is hard, and yet it's so fulfilling, and she was just so herself in her lifetime, and that is really meaningful to me when I see somebody just be completely and unapologetically themselves at their soul core, subconscious level.
Yeah. I mean, I think about that with you, and I'm wondering whether that's just because that's the only way that you can make art, or whether it's an aspiration as well. Because it's maybe easier to make more commercial work, but then you kind of lose your soul, maybe.
I wish I was more commercial. I don't have a sense for it at all. I don't have a sense for what people want. That's what the industry wants. I also don't have a sense for anything that's not literally the process of filmmaking. So I don't have a sense for how to raise money. I don't have a sense for how to market myself. I don't have a sense for how to have an online persona. I don't have a sense for a lot of these things that I think to be a successful filmmaker, you have to have a sense for. Successful, quote unquote, not not to be a good filmmaker, a great filmmaker, but I just have always done this where I've self-immolated at the last minute. Even in a job interview, I just dump the gasoline on myself and light the match.
That's interesting, because I connect with that a lot, and the way that my brain processes stuff is I could try and do this thing for you, but I'm not sure if I actually have those gears, and it's going to be a disaster, and we're all going to sort of hate each other at the end if we don't already. So, do you have it in you to make that John Green adaptation, to make the coming of age movie, the high school movie, the romantic comedy, the high octane thriller, or do you just have like Zia Anger movies in you?
Okay, so I want to have that thing in me, and I think now I think I have gotten better at understanding that part of being a filmmaker is a performance. And so I could totally perform that coming of age movie writer and director. I could totally perform, that TV show director. I could totally perform the adaptation director and take notes from studios and make people a lot of money.
Hmm.
But the question is, am I going to put myself in that position to begin with? Which time and time again, I am absolutely allergic to the work that even goes into that. Like, I and I always do better with collaborators. If I have like a really gung ho collaborator that's like, let's make a big movie, like I would,
Hmm.
that would be fun because that's process to me. That's like what I want to do. But if I have to do it on my own or I have the opportunity to do it on my own, it's not that I will like write an adaptation that is like incomprehensible. It's like actually I'll just go and sign up for community college classes and like go to school for a year or go do a catering job, like all of these things which I'm doing right now.
Right.
Because the idea of going through the motion of doing something that is not me I'm just totally allergic to. When I was fresh out of grad school, I was down to the final 2 people to interviewing at a college in Florida to be a professor there,
Hmm.
and I knew that, like, they really wanted me. I knew I was right for the job. I knew I would be a good teacher. I knew all of these things, and at that moment in time, I just really didn't believe in school. Like, I had just finished grad school, and it's like undergrad, grad school, it's phony. It's like it's taking people's money and what do you get for it? If it's a film school, you get nothing for it. And so I got down to this final round and they said, "Well, where do you see yourself in 2 years?" And I said, "Not here." Which you do not say. Like, you do not say in a tenure track
Right.
job
Yeah.
interview, but I said it. I am just, like, brutally honest, I think, with myself, but
Hmm.
in all of these situations, whether it's school, whether it's making a film, there's a lot of money involved, and I also tend to not be able to hold my tongue in situations like that too. Like, I'd rather make money walking into a kitchen and cooking food every day, because that feels like good and honest than sitting down for a meeting with somebody that could potentially get me a very,
Hmm.
good job making a film. Not to say that I'm not going to do that and I won't do that and I don't want this to come back and haunt me, but just to say that's what I know about myself.
I spoke to Tatiana Maslany recently, and we did one of these conversations, and she was telling me about like walking to auditions in LA, and she would turn up kind of like sweaty, and she turned up like a real person to an LA audition, and it feels very similar to what you're talking about. It's like if you're not gonna accept me as the real person that I am, if you can't fuck with a human being who can do certain things but can't do certain other things, then like don't hire me for this. And
Yeah.
I mean, even in my first film, like you have that thing where you send the email where you're like, I don't want to do your thing. It's stupid, and I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
But that impulse seems very like almost innate to who you are as a person, as an artist.
Yeah. I think I'm always growing and changing, but I've always had a really strong sense of self, and that is like a blessing and that's a curse.
Yeah.
And I don't really have any other way of being, and that has made it a lot harder to make films.
Yeah. I remember us talking maybe like 10 years ago, and you had this incredible sense of self. You knew exactly the film you wanted to make. And it was just this thing of like waiting for the right people to materialize, the people who got what you were doing. And it did happen. And the results are awesome.
Thank you.
Because you invited me to, I'm not sure if it was you, but somebody invited me to a rough cut screening a
Oh
couple of
yeah.
years back.
Yeah.
And I loved it then, and I love the film now. And
Yeah.
it did change in the interim.
Well, the change of the film is a great example of listening to people's feedback and feeling deeply like we probably cut like a half hour out of the movie from the rough cut you saw to the end.
Yeah.
And that rough cut, I was like, okay, this is it. This is done. This is the film I wrote. And it still didn't feel finished. And it wasn't until I got like to the very end, went through a number of like festival rejections and a number of notes, and really felt people feeling really split about the film, that I came to the version of the film that I realized was actually finished
Hmm.
and was actually the film that I wanted to make, but I had not known that I wanted to make. And this thing about time and understanding yourself, I've known this for like a number of years, but I'm kind of constantly having to remind myself that like being ahead of one's time is actually quite painful. And
Hmm.
like you would think like someone ahead of their time is like revolutionary and they're
Hmm.
right, like, but actually no, they're like to understand that you will be recognized after that moment has passed through you is quite interesting. I mean, I got so many text messages the night that Justin Bieber performed at Coachella, and everybody was like, Justin Bieber is Googling himself and playing old YouTube videos of himself and singing back to himself. And this is like so first film coded. So like 10 people texted me. And I love Justin Bieber so much. I've always loved him, like whatever, I don't care. And so I was thrilled that this person who I have always loved was having this meta moment of looking back on himself and this totally public healing moment, which he like deserves. And also I was hit by this feeling of just like nausea because like he was touching on this thing, that I felt like I had unlocked years ago. And I'm obviously not the only person to do that, right? Like multiple
Yeah.
people have done stuff like that. But no, now the zeitgeist actually was now. It was years after I had been there. And it's both thrilling and nauseating and kind of really puts your life into perspective in terms of like what to focus on and what's important, which is also why I think that I have this allergy to like the business side of it all.
So I'm not sure if you've ever listened to past episodes of this, but what I do is I usually kind of dot around, like, I don't know, there's a line right near the end of my first film where you're texting somebody and you say like, why am I the only person this has happened to? And they said it happens to a lot of people. People don't usually talk about it. And I realized when I was doing that, I was like, oh, the questions I like to ask are the things that happen to a lot of people, but people don't really talk about,
Mhm. Mhm.
especially not in interviews.
Mhm.
But also like maybe not that much, period. So,
Definitely. I mean, it's way easier
right.
to feel things than it is to put words to a lot of things. So that makes it I'm ready for the questions.
Right. So when you fantasize about another life, what do you picture?
Well, I mean, this is a constant thing that I've been going through in the last 10 years, which is really trying to live a life that I just feel blown open by. Like that I just feel absolutely blown open by. Like, the I felt that when I was making my first film. I realized that, like, I might only make one of these, like, in a way with, like, a lot of support, and, like, I just really wanted to have fun. Like, it was no use getting anybody together if we weren't just laughing the whole time and really exploring things and going and, like, really being there and supporting each other and, like, feeling a lot of, like, deep empathy and love for each other and, like, pushing each other to just go to places that we hadn't gone to. So, the first thing was really just kind of, like, saying, like, "If I'm gonna show up to this and do this, like, I wanna be laughing all the time, and I want people to feel taken care of, and I wanna take care of people." And that was the first step in imagining a life that I was not living. That was the first fantasy. Being on a film set making something with somebody that was not marked by, like, chaos and stress and trauma and and, like, emotional violence and physical violence, but, by laughter and joy and support and collaboration. And then I was kind of getting to the end of making that film, and I realized that, like, even though I had made that film and it was, like, the greatest experience of my life, I had this fantasy where, like, I was living a life that was not bound by emailing with people about, like, reimbursements or, like, how disappointed I was that, like, nobody had seen my film or, like, what I had to post on social media. And I was like, "What is that life? Like, how can I, like, just get blown open in that way?" Like, blown open in a way where you're, like, in a different dimension, which is, like, akin to, like, taking acid or, like, ecstasy or something like that. I just kept being like, "I wanna blow my life open. I wanna blow my life open." And so I decided to have a kid because having been a nanny for many years, it felt like really like that that the fantasy of, like, letting all those things fall away, which doesn't mean that you can't work, like, you have to make money to have a kid, but, like, the annoyance of day-to-day life and the business of it all, I fantasized about a world in which that slipped away. And so that was, like, a really big decision to be like, "I think I'm gonna have a kid," and that has fulfilled that fantasy in, like, such an extreme way. I think in the process of making a film and having a kid, I've, like, come to realize that, like, the through line of all of this is care and, like, taking care of people and being taken care of. And so, like, my new fantasy is about care and just, like, the daily ritual of care.
Are you a big ritual person?
No, not at all. I think it's something that I've had to learn to, like, cope with day-to-day life. Right? Like, I'm not the type of person that will sit down and write every morning for an hour, but I realized that if I wanted to be a filmmaker, actually, that's probably what I had to do, right? Like, I had to have this ritual of writing. I learned that, like, to mentally feel okay, like, I either have to, like, take a run every day or take a bath. Like, I have to do something,
Mhm.
some sort of ritual that literally just gets my nervous system, like, my fight or flight system just so worn out that I switch over to, like, my parasympathetic rest and digest thing. But I'm not at heart a ritualistic person besides, like, a morning cup of coffee, but that's, like, more of an addictive personality type of thing.
Mhm.
Like, I
Yeah.
have always just I've gone with it. Every friend I've ever had, everybody I've ever dated, every teacher I've ever had, it's, like, kinda like, "Okay, we're gonna do this now," and I'm like, "Okay, we'll do that now." Like, I don't
Mhm.
I don't I don't have an internal schedule beyond, like, wherever I feel the world taking me that day.
That's really interesting because I think of you as somebody who very much knows what you want, but you're not the instigator of those things necessarily.
What I want is just to hang out with other people and take care of other people. So,
Mhm.
when I was, like, 23, it's like I had a boyfriend who's like, "Let's sleep until 11, then go to the coffee shop." And I'm like, "Okay, sounds good." Like,
Mhm.
I can do I can do that. I think I'm like, I've found the beauty in that, like, on a film set, like, I've realized that, like, a lot of people just, like, have a lot of questions they need answered, and so that's what I'll just answer the questions, like, that's how I go with the flow on, like, a film set.
Are you someone who holds on to regret?
Yes and no. I have, like, a lot of regrets, but I wouldn't say I'm so tormented by them in the past. I would say sometimes I romanticize them, and sometimes I use regrets in, like, a proactive way. Like, with the film that didn't work out, so many regrets, but that really drove me to, like, make that film about that film. That was like, "I have to, like, get over this." There's, like, the regret of just, like, not sleeping with, like, 5,000 people when I was in my 20s, like but I'm not gonna, like, go and do that, right? I'm just gonna be
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
"Oh god, my 20s were so awesome. I coulda slept with 5,000 people. Oh, what a time." Can you it's not even nostalgia, it's just like, "Oh, that was awesome being that young," and, like, yeah, I wish I had done something differently and not, like, date all those shitty people and, like, maybe been a little bit more, like, savvy when it came to, like, filmmaking and stuff like that, but also, like, what a wonderful time to actually be nobody. What a wonderful time to be nobody and kind of, like, not do anything right.
yeah. Because you have the freedom to not do things right, I guess.
Totally, and I don't really think that, like, good art and good life is made by doing nothing or only making art.
Yeah.
Like, it's made by, like, truly living life and not getting stuck doing any one thing.
If you'd taken that path of like truly embracing the freedom of not having to date people or embracing a certain creative openness, where does that sort of parallel track Zia go?
I think I probably might have more opportunities and money right now, and I think that I would not know myself as well.
That's interesting.
Like, I think I totally could have been like, I lived in LA for 3 months, I did not make it there. It was, like, in 2008, end of 2008, the writers' strike was not a good time to move to LA as somebody who just graduated undergrad and be like, "Let me work let me work in something." And I was looking back through emails the other day because I was thinking about this project that I wanted to do that would start that year. And I found a very naive email I sent to a woman that I had met at a garage sale, and, like, she was at an agency, and so I Googled her, and now she's, like, a head agent
Hmm.
at one of these big agencies.
Yeah, yeah.
And, I did send her the email. I said, "It was great to meet you. I'm the girl that your friend was flirting with. Here is tell him that I don't care. I don't mind. That's cool. And here is my resume. I'm sorry it took me so long to get to you." And then it says like, "I am down to like be anybody's assistant. I am down to work as a PA on anything. I will do anything." Basically.
Mhm.
Like anything in the industry. And she never wrote me back, right? And I think that had I been a different person, I probably would have emailed her the same day with my resume,
Mhm.
and maybe I could have gotten a PA job or an assistant job, which I have. I haven't been a personal assistant in that way, but I have been like a PA in Hollywood before. And I think that there's a trajectory of my life that is so different and formulaic and would have required just back to back jobs in the film industry that I can imagine being like the best first assistant director ever.
Yeah. I can see you as that. I think you'd be great.
Yeah, I was one of those PAs that they just kept promoting up, and then they're like, "Today you're gonna be the second," and you're like, "What? Wow,
Mhm.
that's amazing." Like, I just I work, like, I just work, I follow the rules, I try to do the best job I can. Like I said, I, like, wanna please everybody around, so
Mhm.
I'm gonna work really, really hard, and I can imagine getting to this point where I, yes, became the best first AD that you've ever had, which I love first aid. Like, those people are, like, incredible and, like, the most important people, and I think knowing myself, I have needed a lot of time not working film jobs and kind of, like, fucking off in different ways, like working as a nanny for many years, cleaning houses, like, working as a cook right now, like, going back to school. Like, I've just needed all that time to really get to know myself. If I had a film industry job where I was on a set every day for 12 hours for my entire 20s and 30s, I just don't think I would know myself that well. I think plenty of people who work those jobs do know themselves really well, but I just think that all these moments of not doing that kind of work back to back has been really, really special for me.
That's really interesting. And do you feel like it's sort of taboo that, not taboo, but it's like not in the kids' book about what it is to be a director that you do these other jobs?
Well, the book is really that the people that get to do the jobs come from rich families.
Right.
And that's the book. That's the
That's
book,
the book.
right?
Yeah.
Like, that's the book.
Yeah. But that's an unwritten thing in the same way that I feel like,
Totally,
yeah.
totally. That's an unwritten thing that, like, when somebody told me that and when I was, like, 26, I was like, "What? Really?" Oh my gosh, that totally changes everything. But yeah, I think I am the exact combination of like personal drive. Like I just have to say what's in me, and I don't really want to do anything other than that. So I'd rather just like work a job that has nothing to do with that. And like I don't know if that works for everybody. I think oftentimes people get really wrapped up in whatever their career is. So like if you want to be a filmmaker, but then you take on the role of a barista, you might end up getting like really, really wrapped up in that
Hmm.
and become like a world class barista. Like that might not be the best choice for everybody. I, well, one, I would never be a barista because I like coffee too much, but I tend to choose jobs that like I have very little interest in pursuing as a career so that at the end of the day, I can sit down and like write a paragraph about something that I'm thinking about.
That's a fantasy for me is that I have a job that I'm able to leave at the door when I come home.
Yeah.
There's no paperwork, there's no stress, there's no residual anything. I can just completely switch off and be present for everything in my life once I clock out.
Yeah. I mean, that's almost impossible to ask because now we're just like living in a time where everybody is freaking emailing everybody at like every hour of the day. Like,
Yeah,
I'm sure that there's plenty of jobs where you think that you're going to clock out and then you don't.
right. Do you remember your dreams? Is there a recent dream that you can remember, or maybe one that historically has stood out to you that stayed in your mind?
I have, man, I mean, I used to do like a lot more with dreams and like got really into lucid dreaming, but
Mm,
but I really don't have like my boyfriend Theo's really into dreams. So he's writing down his dreams every day and he like really has like a big world there. I no longer do. I'm trying to think.
When you were lucid dreaming, what were the things that you, because I feel like for me, my sort of like Mount Everest was like flying, but I'm not
Yeah,
good enough. I haven't put the time in to be a lucid dreamer, but I've flown once and it was amazing.
that's the thing that I used to do a lot was fly.
Hmm.
I just figured it out. And it wasn't you don't fly like, it's not like you're, like, flapping your wings and you just go up. It's a little bit more like you're breathing in and you're slowly getting higher and higher, but also you're, like, undulating up and down and, like, close to the ground and, like, further up into the atmosphere, and always in every single one of those dreams, I would go, like, out of the at I would get too high, like, and just go out of the atmosphere to this point where I, like, couldn't come back, and that was always, like, thrilling, but also terrifying, and, I would wake up a lot from that, but I did used to do that a lot. That was probably my favorite of, like, my reoccurring dreams. There's, like, other dreams that are really boring, but probably, like, Jung would have a field day over of, like, me being in a tunnel of, like, dirty tires and just, like, running up the dirty tires, like I'm in a video
Oh,
game, I'm just running, and I'm just running, I'm running, and I get all the way to the top, and there's a white house with a white picket fence, and you're just like, "What what am I doing up here?"
have you ever like taken those dreams to therapy? Because that's kind of the imagery of that is interesting. I'm just sort of wondering
No,
what.
I don't I've taken a lot I have a lot to bring to therapy that I have not even
That's
got
too
it.
far down your list.
Yeah, that's really yeah, exactly. Like, I'll bring dreams in that feel like they're really saying something to me about, like, a decision that I have to make, or, like, recently when I've been going to bed, I've been trying to think about things that I have questions about. Like, I've been trying to ask those questions to myself before I go to bed in hopes of them coming back as an answer, but, like, also, like, I have a nearly two-year-old, and so my sleep is so irregular at this point, right? That like and that's actually good for lucid dreaming, like the random wake ups and stuff like that. But my sleep is so irregular. And then my mornings, there is zero routine there. Like you don't know if you're waking up at like 5:30 or like 8:30. And you don't know if you are going to get to lay in bed or you're going to be dragged out of bed, if someone's going to be laughing, if somebody's going to be crying, somebody meaning
Uh-huh.
like my kid. Like there's no real moment of reflection. But I've definitely had dreams about a project that I'm working on, and I'll call the producer and be like, "I had this dream. This is crazy. This is I'm getting the answer that I need." And the producer's like, "Yeah, okay." Because producers definitely do not want to hear about your dreams. And then the thing happens, right? Like, which is not to say that I am determining the future. It's more to say that, like, I am feeling what will come because it is already in the air. Like, the writing, for whatever reason, is already on the wall. Whether it be like a project not working out or something from the script needing to go in or get cut out, like,
Hmm.
I use dreams in many ways for that. And for me, it's more attached to like my instincts of like things I should do or shouldn't do. It's like a place to work out or like call forth your instincts.
What's your first memory of death?
My first memory of death is 80s, it's the late 80s, and my dad's one of my dad's on this commune with all these other gay men and a couple like gay women. There are these two communes next to each other, and a man who was like one of my dad's best friends named Laser died. He had AIDS, or he died from AIDS-related complications, and they had figured out a way to make the field across the street from my dad's into like a cemetery, so we were not like at a normal cemetery or anything like that. We were just in a field, and it was raining, and I think that it was like open. Like in my memory, I remember seeing his body, and I remember there being like a ton of glitter. Like somebody had
Hmm.
just like doused like him and the coffin and the ground that he was being lowered into in glitter. And I remember my mom's saying, "Go over there and stand with your dads." And me and my brother walked across the muddy glitter, or the
Hmm.
glittery mud,
Yeah, yeah,
and stood with our dads. And there was like a lot of flowers, and that was but it was like not traditional death, It
yeah,
was like
yeah.
incredibly it was incredibly celebratory.
Hmm.
Which I've realized that a lot of I've been to a few like funerals or memorials that are actually just, you're like, oh yeah, this is a celebration of life. Like that is what this is. It is very little to do with somebody dying and not being here anymore, but more of like celebrating the time that they were here and what we will always like carry of them forward.
Do you ever think about your own funeral?
No, I I went to like an art exhibition like probably when I was like 19 or 20 and like
Mhm.
and I remember that it was like what song do you very edgy stuff, whatever. What song do you want played at your funeral? And I wrote down Why Do Fools Fall in Love?
Mm, interesting.
Which is like a very, very catchy, annoying song from like the 50s or something like that. And that is the only time that I have ever reflected, I think, like in my memory on dying. But I'm not, maybe it'll change when I get older and I'm going to die or somebody like super, super close to me dies, but I tend to not think about it that much and not have like a lot of fear around it. I think though that's
That's great.
well, yeah, but I mean, I think it's also because I spent years reckoning with like this possibility of my dad who has HIV.
Mhm. Yeah.
For a long time it was a terminal illness. It could not be managed by modern medicine. And so I spent like a lot of years thinking about that possibility and reckoning with that and realized like at a certain point I just like had to come to peace with that. And through that personal individual relationship, it's kind of like really opened my I feel like I have a certain openness about death that I didn't used to have. But also that openness is just like maybe I don't think about it that much. Although like everyone I have Googled being a death doula just to see what it was like. That was
Mm,
if that was something I'd be interested in.
yeah. When you made Thanks for Calling Baby, like, was that a way of processing your father's relationship with HIV? Or was it because you had already processed it?
That was definitely mid-processing. That was early on in processing. Like, I had only found out my dad had HIV when I was 12, and then when I was in high school, my dad had 2 heart attacks, and then I
Wow.
made Thanks for Calling Baby at, like, 18. So, it was
Mm,
very, like, early on and in high school, I hadn't told anybody my dad had HIV. I didn't tell any of my friends or anything like that. So, in a way, it was like this announcement to my classmates
mhm,
because I made it for school. It was an
mhm,
announcement to my classmates, which was just kinda like, "Oh, yeah, hey, so my name is Zia, and I have this dad who's just this, like, larger than life figure," like everybody's dad, but for me, like, really this larger than life figure, and, "Oh, yeah, and he has HIV." And so that was, like, this first kind of moment of, like, it happens to everybody, it's just that nobody talks about it, which is not that everybody's dad has HIV, it's just more that everybody's dad is, like, larger than life and probably is, like, physically not in the best shape because, you know, we all have boomer dads that
mhm.
are
This is true.
are notorious for their health, in my opinion.
Yeah. So, having touched on death, I'm tipping my hand here as to my own particular places that my mind goes. But did you think at all about what life will be like decades from now, or like the disintegration of civilization, that kind of stuff, the end of the world?
You know, a little bit. There was that book that came out about nuclear war that's like a minute by minute play of like what happens when the bomb drops,
Hmm.
which me and Theo listened to like when our child was like 2 months old. Because like when a kid
Mm.
is 2 months old, you have like nothing to do. You're kind of like, we're just sitting
Yeah.
around. Like
Yeah.
you're always driving to doctor's appointments because like kids go to the doctor like every 2 weeks
Right.
when they're first born.
Yeah.
So we listened to this and it was just like really strange to just be completely present and like in the aura of new life and also be hearing about like the way that the end of the world would go, right? Which,
Hmm.
this book
Yeah.
just covers 24 hours basically of like what's going to happen when somebody drops the bomb. Because like when somebody drops the bomb, then everybody's going to drop bombs, right? Like that's the whole book.
Right.
I I just pronounced one day, I was like, you know what, if it happens, like I'm taking myself out. I'm taking myself out. I'm taking my dog, I'm taking my daughter, and we're done. And Theo was like, what? He was like kind of like shocked by that. But I felt really at that moment this clarity that like, if that's like what's coming, I don't need to be here anymore. Like even if I survived like nuclear bomb, living with a 70-year winter or whatever it is
Hmm.
because of the cloud, where you can't grow any food.
Yeah.
You can't like hang out with people because everyone's freaking out. Everyone's dying of like really horrible cancers and there's like no medicine. I was like, kind of like, I think I would like tap out. I would be done. And that is in a way also like there's this one to one with filmmaking that I have been feeling for quite a while, which is like with AI, right? The first jobs that are gonna go are like all these technical jobs that like computer, like it's gonna be like the sound guys and the
Right.
like the CGI people, whatever. But you're still gonna need directors. You're still gonna need cinematographers because someone's got to direct the vision, right? And I kind of like, but you know what? If I just have to sit there and talk to someone who's entering prompts to a computer, like I don't want to do that. Like, that's just, like, really not what I signed up for, and it is I have a very similar like, the literal end of the world and then the end of kind of, like, filmmaking as we know it, I have the same line, which is like, "Yeah, it's not I just really didn't sign up for that." Like, that's not really what I wanted doing, which goes along with what we first started talking about, which is just, like, I just want, like, my world I just wanna be, like, blown open. Like, I just wanna be exploded. So that's something that I really, like, think about a lot, which is not, like, how am I gonna survive the end of the world, and how am I gonna, like, survive, right, the end of, like, moving images as we know it, but, like, how actually am I gonna, like, live a life that I am really content with in the time that we have.
Yeah. Can you tell me the story of you falling in love for the first time? The first person you fell in love with?
Oh my god. I mean, there's just been so many times.
Because for me, like I think back, I think there's definitely when I was a kid, I was like I had crushes, but then there was like this person where I was like, oh, this is the first time it's actually
Yeah.
falling in love with somebody.
Yeah, okay. So I'd say the first time that I really just knew from like far away before we even knew each other was in college, and it was this guy who then would become my college boyfriend for like 3 years, and he was just a freak. Like he was just so I mean, it's like 2006. I don't even remember what he was wearing, but he was like had suspenders on and he had like a strange hat on and he had this dark black curly hair and like a mustache and beard and nobody had a mustache and beard, let alone like a like a 19-year-old. And he kind of had these very loose hips that he was like walking around with and he was saying goodbye to this girl that it was clear that he was dating,
Mm.
but him and I were both getting on the same bus to New York City, and I just, like, I knew. I just was like, "I am so good." I just love that guy. I just really, really love that guy, and I think, like, within and this is, like this is I in a lot of my, like, long-term romantic relationships, I've been able to see it before it's happened, where there's just, like, this moment where I've been able to see the person across the room and see that, like, they're not available to me right now, and also be like, we have an incredible past, present, and future together, and, like, I am going to make that happen, and I become very adamant
Interesting.
about making that happen.
So it's not that it's like it's fate or it's destiny or you're being pulled together. You're just like you
You
are
are
gonna end up with me.
you are mine. Yeah, it's
Yes.
you you are mine. And so with this particular boyfriend, I can say his name because we're still very good friends, is Nathan. And Nathan just was like even a bigger freak like when I actually got to know him than I ever could have expected. He was from Maryland, right? Like he was like straight out of a John Waters movie or something like that. He's just like this a great sartorial sense for like a night.
Hmm.
Is that what the word sartorial?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sense for, like obviously, it was all, like, thrifted and vintage, but, like, these amazing suits and these amazing shirts, and, like, he would really, like, comb his hair and comb his beard and stuff like that, and, I mean, I think I was catching him at, like, the end of his hacky sack days, like, I don't necessarily think he was always like that, but I think, like,
Yeah.
we both, like, found each other at this moment where like our true selves were like coming out, and I had been a jock for like so many years, which was a great and interesting part of me, but also like had always had this secret artist side of me that I really 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 wanted to come out, and being with him was just like, we would just lay around all day, like watching movies and take acid. And this obviously sounds like the 60s. It's not, right? It's like 2006.
Yeah.
We would listen to like records that were really mind blowing and like sit down and like listen to the entire record. So we were just like really out and living, and we were constantly like working on each other's film projects together. And there was a whole group of us too. It wasn't just me and Nathan. It was like me and Nathan, and then Ashley Connor, who obviously is this
Hmm.
amazing cinematographer
Yeah.
that I still work with and one of my best friends, and Billy Feldman, who wrote my first film with me. And we were all we'd have these crazy dance parties, and we would have like there was a party called Take It to the Limit, and everybody would just like take it to the limit. So like one guy just stood in the shower. He's just like, I'm just gonna be in the shower the whole party. Like another person, there was a car that had been left outside that was abandoned, and their Take It to the Limit was like lifting this car. So they got everybody in the party to come out, and we all picked up a car together
Wow.
and walked across the parking lot so that it was no longer blocking this like prime parking spot. And me and Nathan at this point, now this is like 3 years into our relationship when things are like totally on the rocks, because when you're like in
Hmm.
college,
Hmm.
and our Take It to the Limit was just pretending that we were still together, even though we were kind of not together. So we were like walking around the party and like being really, really mean to each other, but also like, like wouldn't let each other be with anybody else.
Hmm.
And that actually Take It to the Limit continued through graduation, which is when we were like truly broken up and truly with other people at that point, but we realized it might be easier just to pretend that we were still together for the sake of our families.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, we pretended to still be a couple and did all of the graduation ceremonies and brunches and, like graduation parties together with our family as a couple. And yeah, he really was, I would say, like my first true like love where I felt like 100% myself.
So you talking about that moment where you knew, um, one of my questions I have is like, what's your karaoke song? And I'm wondering, like, because I think me and you and Theo and a bunch of other people were doing karaoke.
Definitely.
I don't think I actually ever sang.
Definitely.
And that was kind of maybe the start of you knowing, or maybe not. I'm not sure.
Definitely. Me and Theo being together.
You and Theo, yeah, yeah,
Yes, there was a karaoke night.
yeah.
And so what's my karaoke song?
Do you remember what you sang and what role the karaoke played in that knowing?
There's a big tension between me and Theo still 10 years in, because I am 100% sure that he claims it as his karaoke song, but I claim it as mine because I have been singing it because of a different person that I dated before him. So I'm like, I have the receipts there, but my karaoke song is I'm on Fire by Bruce Springsteen.
Hmm. Great song.
Great song. And most importantly, it's a short song. And like the last thing that you want to do on a karaoke stage, if you're like a mediocre singer, is sing anything longer than 2.5 minutes. So
Yeah.
um I have now since switched songs.
Okay.
My karaoke song is Love Yourself by Justin Bieber.
Okay.
Also short, crowd pleaser, and relatively easy to sing if you're a bad singer. But yeah.
So you sing that song together then, or what?
No,
What's
no, I signed up to sing that song, and he signed up and sang Beast of Burden, which I would argue is his.
oh
Beast of Burden is 100% his karaoke song, and I'm on Fire was mine.
yeah
But he sang Beast of Burden, and then it was kind of, like karaoke, or like I'm gonna be here for like 6,000 hours, and like maybe there's better things to do. And I think me and Theo were both like, let's get out of here. Like he sang Beast of Burden, and then it was like, yeah, let's get out of here. Like we don't have to stay forever to hear everybody sing. So we left.
so just the two of you left together?
No, we left with another filmmaker, and we all walked back to the same hotel. And on that walk, I was like, all right, this is definitely a thing.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
I would say I probably had with Theo 5 serious, like serial monogamous type of thing.
Hmm. Yeah.
Serial monogamous. I've said I have 5 serious boyfriends, and all but one of them, all but the first one, I could really like see from. I could like see from the outside, like days, weeks, months before. Like, okay, that's going to be a thing.
That's great. Well, I think I thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, my pleasure.
This was really fun.
Yeah,
This was
thank
really
you so
fun.
much.
And yeah, you're somebody who I've always thought was so talented and interesting, and it's been really a pleasure to get to have this time with you.
Thanks, Nick. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much to Zia Anger for talking with me, and thanks to you for listening. My first film is available to stream on Mubi, and you can find a bunch of Zia's other work online also. This episode was produced by Myron Kaplan, and the theme music is by The Range. Nobody's Ever Asked Me That now has a Substack, so head to nobody'sever-asked-me-that.substack.com to check out all of our past episodes, plus subscribe to get access to exclusive audio and video content. Next week on Nobody's Ever Asked Me That, my guest will be indie pioneer and the genius behind Sidewalk Stories, Charles Lane.
I've done some things that were scary, some that were unnecessary, and some that were necessary. And thankfully, I'm here to reminisce about it. But when I was younger, I was about 7 years old. I accidentally set my apartment, my parents, my brother, set my apartment on fire, playing with matches.
Wow.
That wasn't pleasant, and I got my tail whooped for that. But the thing is, with that little anecdote, I did it twice.
That's next week on Nobody's Ever Asked Me That.